Hello, and welcome to this episode of Ruckcast. Ruckcast is your opportunity to listen in on unscripted conversations about cutting-edge Ruckus Wi-Fi and wired networking technology, RUCKUS Business, and just interesting innovations that impact the computer networking industry today and in the future. Ruckcast is brought to you directly from CommScope Ruckus Education. For more learning opportunities, be sure to log on to training.ruckuswireless.com and view content on our Ruckus Education YouTube channel. Simply search for Ruckus Education on your YouTube homepage. Without further ado, here's your host, Matt Clouda.
It's a big day. Pramod, thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, Matt.
So if you don't mind, just because this is external facing, just give a quick introduction about yourself, who you are, and what your role is here.
Yeah, so I'm Pramod Badjate. I am the person running the RUCKUS Business. My official title is SVP of RUCKUS Business here at CommScope. I've been with RUCKUS for 6.5 years. I've got a lot of experience in the wireless industry. I started way back in the mid 2000s or early 2000s actually with a startup which was one of the first ones which was involved in converting Wi-Fi from individual access points to what we call a controller-based architecture, so enterprises could deploy it easily. Got acquired into Cisco as a result of that, spent many years there, and then ended up at RUCKUS in 2013. And it's been a great ride at RUCKUS, through all the various innovations the team has been responsible for. And right now we are within the venue and campus segment within CommScope. So the other, just I think since this is a relatively new thing, it will be, I think, good for your listeners to know, Venue and Campus has RUCKUS as a business. It has DCCS, which has licensed small cell and DAS. And then it has inside plant copper and fiber. So bringing all of these together essentially allows us to go and provide a depth and width of offerings, all related to what you need to deploy in building networks.
You know, that's really kind of an interesting point that you bring up, because when you look at the number of acquisitions that companies go through, and you look at RUCKUS's history, right? You come into a company through CommScope, and now you have literally end to end. You can go layer 1 to layer 7, all the way up through. And, you go through that, and then your role changed quite a bit, and you became the head of RUCKUS. And one thing I was curious about is when you took that over, I think everybody wants to impact the business in the right way, and you want to point it in the right direction to do things. What were some of the things that you initially looked at and said, these are the things I want to focus on. These are the shifts and the directions that I really want to take this business in?
Good question. But yeah, I want to first comment on the acquisitions. Yes, we went through one too many acquisitions, as I like to joke about. Especially the last 2 years was surreal in terms of starting as an independent company to, over the 3 years going through multiple acquisitions. But I think what has been very fortunate is that through all these acquisitions, all of the companies that we were part of, or all the entities we were part of, recognized RUCKUS as something special. And so we maintained our independence, we maintained our roadmap, our focus areas, and that did not change through the acquisitions. And even within Venue and Campus within CommScope, RUCKUS has its independent roadmap, and we continue to focus on that. But I'm also excited about what I said earlier about the opportunities to work and provide an end-to-end offering, which is unparalleled by anyone else. So yeah, it's been interesting. I used to run worldwide engineering for RUCKUS before I took on this role. And I've been in this role for about 6 months. And the things which, I am focused on, and I was aware of it coming into RUCKUS, and what I wanted to focus on was one, how do we grow from where we are, right? The part of the focus was organizational, just because we had gone through these acquisitions. So I wanted to make sure I, set my organization in a space where they could see and, understand the vision of where the company wanted to go, where RUCKUS wanted to go, and believe in it. In fact, one of the first things I did was get all of the key leaders within RUCKUS together for a strategy offsite where we looked into the areas that we wanted to focus on. There was some work already done as part of strategy that I was part of when, before I took on this role, late 2019. So we built on top of it. And the few areas that we identified, one is tap onto this focus on convergence that is happening in the network. make sure that we double down on the integrations we are doing across our products, wired, wireless, but now it spans to other products within Venue and Campus, like how do we integrate licensed and unlicensed. So there's already efforts going on within the business to do that. The second thing was to make sure that when it comes to cloud, we had the right strategy for integration, a pragmatic strategy. So we focused on making sure that we delivered on the Alto architecture within engineering to get cloud on it, so we could start accelerating our the products and the services that we want to get out on it. The third thing was this notion of autonomous networks, meaning how do we get to a point where we can have the network run with very low touch. We don't require the same amount of efforts IT needs to focus on running in a wireless network. When things go wrong, the focus until now is detecting that. We want to go beyond that. We want to do anomaly detection, but we also want to go beyond that and bring in the self-healing aspect into the network, being able to go back and make changes that we would recommend to IT. And that's a very bold, vision that the team put together. And I think we are on our way with the announcement of RUCKUS Analytics. We took, first giant step towards it. I'm really proud of what the team put together. It required a lot of effort to sort of make our network data-driven and convert all of the APs into the right sensors so that we knew in the cloud what was happening in the network. So we started by first detecting anomalies, prioritizing that, and then now focusing on what can we do to, go back and make changes in the network without IT even knowing about it. That's sort of where we are headed. And I think those were some of the things. I could go into a lot of other minute details, but I think move towards cloud, move towards convergence, making sure at the organizational level we were set up for success. Those were the initial challenges I took on, and I'm happy that we made great progress on all of those ends.
Yeah, it's funny because as we were going through acquisitions, I'd go home and tell my wife, well, we got bought again. And she's like, oh my gosh, again? And I said, hey, you have to look at it this way. We're just that good where we're wanted. And, I've seen a lot of focus and interest and excitement in things like RUCKUS Analytics right now. And there's a blurb at the beginning of this podcast when it publishes that we're doing live streams now. So we're going to start doing those. And the first one is on RUCKUS Analytics. And just working with that team and seeing how much they really put into it, and how much they care about it. So it's really cool to see, somebody like yourself in that position that you can say, hey, this is the direction we need to go in and what we should be doing, and how quickly people buy into that and say, I get it. You're absolutely right. Let's go. Let's make it happen. So that's been really interesting to see. Cloud services to me make a ton of sense, right? They're just so versatile. And I think the funny thing about it is when you look at wireless networks, they're very well baked in that. But when you look at wired networks with the ICX, it's almost like they're kind of in their infancy going into that. So how do you see that really shifting and changing and kind of growing on the wired side?
Well, with our last release, that was the big thing about the cloud release that, we came out with. We have now integrated ICX management into it. We have integrated RUCKUS Analytics into it. So we do now have a converged platform for switching as well as wireless. And one of the things which helps us is that we invested in, I think our strategy is different from many others, right? We took our controller platform, which was a wireless LAN controller, and then we made our switches integrated into that in somewhat the same way as APs integrate into the controller. They get discovered into the network the same way, they get onboarded the same way, the way you push policies and you assign things into zones is done the same way. So it made it much easier to then take it, because that controller platform, virtualized controller, is also the basis of our cloud platform. It made it easier for us to integrate into that. And one of the things that people who have tried our cloud come back and always tell us is just how simple we've made it. Simplicity of the workflows in our cloud, is just, unparalleled compared to anybody else, I think, at this point. So I think what we have is already great. But when it comes to RUCKUS Analytics, as you said, we're starting with, initial insights about what you can discover in the network, especially when it straddles between wired and wireless. And then we are also working in parallel to make sure that we are adding additional data points and sensors, if you will, into how the data is reported from our switching and on the wireless side, so we can correlate things and derive deeper insights on the switching side. So that will be an ongoing journey. We'll continue to iterate and add more insights and capabilities as we go along.
Yeah. So I'm going to put you on the spot with a question in a way. You know, my background is routing and switching. So that's what I've done for over 20 years.
Yeah.
When you look at products that are being brought into cloud infrastructure and into analytics infrastructure, one thing you look at, and I don't think I'm airing dirty laundry when I say this, is our fast iron software is old. Are there plans to do a full-on rebuild of that software to kind of help bring more robustness in that product in the cloud services?
Yes. So let me just give you, an answer which sort of reflects on the reality. So there is a plan for upgrading the fast iron OS, but we are doing it in a pragmatic way to first focusing on areas which will have the biggest impact. Fast iron, as far as customers are concerned, it's a very reliable and a very solid OS. I think it's had the test of time, and it's become very stable over a period of time. So yes, we want to modernize parts of it, but we want to do it in a way such that it minimizes the impacts for our customers. And to your previous point, the area which the team is focused initially on is how do you modernize the manageability interfaces so that you can have better interfaces for connecting into cloud and have more real-time updates into cloud as compared to the type of interfaces we had in the olden days. And that's the initial focus area that people will see the benefits from. But building on top of it, we will add more streaming interfaces so that, deriving insights, the latency to deriving insights from the network gets much quicker. So yeah, there are plans of modernizing it in phases, and the team is well underway. It's not something that we just started recently. The team there has been invested on a period of time, and some changes have already, seen the light of day. Especially things like automation and other things. We've modernized it with, many new interfaces that have been added. But there's a lot of more work to do, and the team is focused on that.
And you look at this kind of stuff, and project loads for customers don't ever shrink historically, right? I mean, your project load is going to get greater and greater and greater. And you run into situations like this is more prevalent now than ever, as you hit situations where you run into a pandemic, you run into a recession, the project load still doesn't drop off, right? All of this work still has to be done, and customers are still trying to crank this stuff out. But they have to also understand that, vendors like us are making that job easier. Like you just said, I mean, the management of it becomes much easier to handle. And I mean, I look at it from my operations background. If we had to do upgrades because of a defect, it was a nightmare. I mean, you're looking at 1,000 devices that you're manually touching, and now you're taking all of that out of it. And in wireless environments, it's even bigger because your AP deployment can be so large, right? So it's really nice to kind of see that that's really the direction. And, voice of the customer, I think, has always been heard here. So that's a big thing.
I think ease of deployment is something that, Ruckus has always been known for historically, right? That's the reason we have the loyalty of our partners. Great, RF, and, that's, where we started from. But what we wrapped it around was just the simplicity of deployment. And to give you an example, we had Eddie, our CEO, deploy Ruckus Unleashed at his home. And, so he had some challenges with Wi-Fi. He deployed Ruckus in his new home, absolutely loved it. And then we realized that we had upgraded the software to, take into account one particular corner case. We wanted him to upgrade it. And I just interacted with him yesterday, and I said, hey, that mobile app that you have, can you go ahead? I didn't have to give him many instructions. He just sent back an email saying, oh yeah, I just went to the mobile app, upgraded it. My entire network is upgraded, works great. No interruptions, maybe for a little bit, my wife's network, when she was working went down, but she'll forgive me, right? So it was amazing that the CEO, who has not used any interfaces at all, could do that upgrade and was aware of what was happening. That's the power of sort of ease of use that we built in something like Unleashed in all our products, that you can use the mobile app and do almost all functions in a fairly intuitive way.
That's great. Heck yeah. So Wi-Fi 6 is a big conversation right now. I think everybody's pretty excited about it. How's that been looking from your side? I mean, I know there's a lot of work and effort that goes into that. Are you guys?
Yeah, Wi-Fi 6 and then Wi-Fi 6E, both of them I'm really excited about, because these are network transitions, that will stay with us for a long time. When I go back to, for instance, it's equivalent to, in my mind, that we went to 11N, it was like a big leap from what was there before. And Wi-Fi 6 just makes it so much easier when it comes to more difficult networks. And then when you especially add 6E with the clean spectrum that's potentially available there, it would make Wi-Fi networks much more reliable. And I think there are many more use cases, especially with AR, VR, and all that we'll start seeing it. So I'm excited in terms of what we as end users will be able to get out of it. But I'm also excited from a RUCKUS business point of view in terms of the transition that is ahead of us as most of the networks migrate to Wi-Fi 6 and 6E. So it's really exciting times. And the team has done an awesome job of the line of Wi-Fi 6 APs that we have out there, and very proud of what we have accomplished with that. I think our customers will be really happy, and it'll continue to fulfill the RUCKUS promise of we are the best in RF with these APs.
I agree. So I know that when we talk about teams, there's so much collaboration that goes into all of these projects and products and everything that we're putting out there. Has there been any impact with the work from home stuff on any of that stuff, or have people kind of risen above it and said, you know what, we're just going to overcome it and make everything happen?
Wow, that's an awesome question. I was just thinking about it the other day, that if someone had told me, rewind back 4 months and told me that, Pramod, we're going to suddenly, one fine day next Monday, hit a pause button on anybody coming to office anywhere around the world. And oh, by the way, whatever schedules you have for products and launch of products and anything else, that stays the same. I would have said you're nuts. And I think most people would have said you're nuts, right? So I'm just amazed at, first of all, the resiliency of the team in how they rallied to this challenge. As people say, sometimes, you only realize your true character as a person or a team when the chips are down. And that's what I saw in the RUCKUS team. So, not just in terms of product development, I'll talk about that in a second, but people rallied around in their communities. I saw people go out and help with disaster recovery. I saw people help with, people who had talent and, data analysis, help with analyzing in Santa Clara what the caseloads look like and how could we make sense out of the data. And they actually, got involved in blogging. We tried to help out our customers who had needs. So I think even just at that level, I was really thrilled with what we showed as a team. But then when it comes to product development, was there an impact in some pockets? Yes, especially when you're dependent on being able to do hardware in QA, or things getting stuck in custom because you need it in Bangalore to test something, but you can't have the product in the hands of the people testing. So there was some impact, but by and large, most of our products stayed on track. People figured out how to work around it, and people figured out how to collaborate on video. So I'm amazed the number of products that we've launched, the number of access points, the cloud releases, the RUCKUS Analytics release, all of them have done really well, and I'm really proud of the team and how we rallied.
Yeah, it's really great when you see how much humanity comes into situations like that and how much understanding you get out of them. A good example, the neighborhood that we live in, we have a number of neighbors that are retired, and some have pre-existing conditions, some don't. But first thing I did was run around and say, hey, if you guys need anything, if you're worried about going to the store, if you need something, we go all the time, just let me know and we'll get it. And I think you saw a lot of that even at work, because you do have some people that are essential that are there, and they're probably stretched even thinner because now they're trying to touch and handle everything. So it's great that you see that, and you get that sense of community and teamwork. So
yeah, absolutely.
It's weird. This whole thing is just, it's been weird. I mean, my first thought was, imagine if you were born in 1900. Right. The first 40 years of your life would have been pretty colorful, because you're going to go through a major depression. You're going to go through a pandemic. Then you're going to go through world wars. I mean, you're almost, it's kind of like 1900 and then 2000. It was all just on repeat. But anyways,
my 12-year daughter was telling me the other day that, I think all we need now is an earthquake in California. I think that'll sort of, top it all the things that have happened in 2020. But yeah, no, it's been surreal. You feel sometimes like you live in an episode of Black Mirror, right? If you've seen that on Netflix, it seems like you're living through those times.
It's so true. They had earthquakes. My parents, when they retired, they moved to Idaho, and they had earthquakes up there. And my first thought was, that's really close to Yellowstone. Like, how bad is this really going to get? Jeez. All right. So, we're running through. Everybody's still clipping at a big rate. When we come out of this and we start to, I'm using air quotes, which I'm not a fan of, but when we normalize a little bit, right, and people can sit in the same room and sit in the same lab and touch the same hardware. What new things are going to come out of this? I mean, there's nothing like a failure to really show you where the holes are, right? So, and this pandemic in some ways or another has shown people where holes are, either in their technology, in their network, in anything. So where do you kind of see this changing things in the future and different paths that things will take?
Well, for sure, I think the way we work is going to change. Regardless of even if a vaccine was discovered and everything returned to normal, I think we will have more people working from home. I myself, for instance, right, when I got on this call and you told me you can turn off the video if you want, and I've left the video on. I've just become used to it. It used to be my instinct used to be that I would start and I would sort of, video, I would only turn on if it was needed. Now video on is default because, I'm doing so many calls every day. So uplink bandwidth, right? And so coming back to how it affects Ruckus is need for, Wi-Fi, which works, and works for these type of demands, a lot more devices, a lot more video, a lot more uplink, a lot more resiliency in it will become very important. And we already see it. So as an example, we started this friends and family program within Ruckus for all of CommScope to order, Ruckus devices and switches for their home network. When Nat started it, I thought, well, okay, it's good. Over a period of time, we need to have this, but, you're not going to have big demand because people already have consumer devices or whatever. And within a week or two, we had 150 or so people who ordered that, right? That just gives you an example of the pent-up demand to have great networks at home is. So that's clearly an opportunity for us. And we are focused on how can we make sure that that is even better than what it is right now. So the team looking at that. I think when people come back to office, if this pandemic stays with us for some time, there will be a need for, maybe the network helping with, contact tracing, for instance, right? So we've added capabilities, in our products and Ruckus Analytics, so we can, because we have a visibility into network, we know where the mobile devices are and where people are. So if needed, we can get to the data of, are we, staying consistent with social distancing at an aggregate level, obviously keeping privacy concerns and all of that into account, but how can the network help in ensuring that from a facilities point of view, we are doing the right things, and how, people are interacting. So I think there will be capabilities the network will provide on that end. So yeah, those are some of the things that I expect. It is definitely, this thing will change the way we work, the way we live and play, for sure. For times to come, and the network will adapt to it. And I'm proud of the fact that how network has helped. I mean, just think about the fact that, right, if something like this had happened, 20, 30 years back, the whole economy would have come to a complete stop, right? The reason this was mitigated was because we have networks, because we have Wi-Fi networks, that most of the activities people are able to continue regardless of, whether they're socially distant from each other. And I think we all who are in networking should be proud of that.
Yep, I agree. So one of the favorite questions I ever had, and I learned this from somebody when I worked for a provider, we'd have RFEs or RFPs and bring vendors in, and we'd always say, all right, you've told us all the things that you do great, right? Now I want you to tell me 3 things that you don't do great. And the way I kind of want to position that to you is, we do a lot of things great, but with any business, there's always things that you need to improve upon, right? So what are some of the things that you saw when you took the reins and you said, we need to do this better, and then are actively being worked to become better?
So yeah, that's a good question, Matt. Some of the things which I wouldn't necessarily say that we do them poorly, but I do think we identified those as areas of focus for us to do better, just given the nature of where we are, as a company, and how, where we are at this point in terms of, the products we have, for instance. So one immediate area that the team identified was that when it comes to the architectures that Ruckus has, on one hand, we are very proud of the fact that we have the best, controllerless product line in Unleashed. We have the smart zone architecture, we have cloud, they all have, great attributes to it. But to some extent, when we develop features, we don't have leverage across each of these. So it was very important to make sure that we build them in a way that we had leverage. So for instance, there is work going on. As a result of that, we responded to it by saying, we need to take our smart zone architecture and iterate it so that, it becomes much more fluidly, integrated inside cloud, instead of being, a monolith black box inside. So that effort has been going on for the last 6 months, and we've started to see some great results from it. The second thing, which is the need of the type of company that Ruckus is within CommScope, that we wanted to make sure that we are able to integrate with other partners much more easily. And we thought that we have a great advantage in what we have with our APIs already. As you know, SmartZone has great API sets, but I don't think we have done enough with that in terms of integrating with our partners, both on technology front and also integrating with our partners on the managed services front. So there was additional focus put both within engineering as well as in the technical solutions marketing teams to make sure that we put in effort to make sure our APIs were well understood and put in an effort on how it could integrate better with others. And again, there we've started to see results of it. I'm sure you've seen, and this would be a great thing for Marcelo and team to come and talk about maybe in your podcast someday. But we've done some great efforts in making it easy, where even the goal is that even you don't have to be a developer to integrate Ruckus products with into larger solutions, because that's frankly a strength for us, and I think we need to do more there. And the third thing, more not technical, is I felt we have great products, but somehow as we went through various acquisitions, we were not talking about it as much externally, right? So I heard about this when I talked to friends outside. They were like, "Hey, you've been quiet lately," right? And so there was a concerted effort, and I hope people are seeing this, that my team is now going out and talking about the great stuff that is happening or commenting on our views on what's happening in the industry. So I think we are hopefully people will see this come out of us, and I think that was another thing which I felt like we had sort of lost a little bit of that, just as the nature of all the things that we went through, and we're getting that back again. So those are some of the priorities that we identified amongst many others, and but I'm happy to state that we are making progress on all of those.
I really appreciate that answer and the openness, and that's definitely one of the things that makes you great at what you do. So I'm gonna, since you just brought it up, I am gonna reach out to Marcelo. So that's gonna have to happen. He's been voluntold. Easy use is really a big thing, and it's always been kind of interesting to me how you take some of these great products, right? So we took Zone Director, and then you can spin off and create Unleashed off of that. Then you take Smart Zone, and you can spin off and build cloud platforms. And then you take SCI, and you can spin off and build analytics platforms. How much of an actual leap and headache really is that when you look at it? I mean, is there wide eyes in the room looking at you going, how are we going to do this? Or is it really, oh, you know what? I think the way we built it initially makes it really easy to port it over and build off of it.
Yeah, no, I think, first of all, we have a great team. I think that's one of the things we've been blessed with, that all the products that you talked about, there were, awesome architects behind it. And always the goal has been that we can't foresee how our products will, merge and get used. So, being able to leverage it in different ways, different integration options is always important. That's why we're focused on APIs, so that, in these type of integrations become easier. But sometimes it's a challenge, because SmartZone was built for a large carrier, for instance, right? And that was, then we took it from there and shrunk it down for enterprises. And when you try to deploy it in cloud, it has a different velocity. The ability to be able to integrate changes into it have to be faster. So, we had to then take the various components within Smart Zone and break it down into containers. And that effort is underway. That will allow us to independently make changes in smaller chunks of code within Smart Zone without having to do the full release. And that will definitely be helpful. So, yeah, it is something that the team has done it many times. So we certainly have the capability and the knowledge for it. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, I think human nature is you become in awe of people that can do things that I can't wrap my head around, right? So I look at the engineering team and the things that they do and what they develop and how they build it, and I'm in awe of it. So they're a great team. I mean, we've thrown RFEs at them, and they've always been extremely open and looking at it and understanding the need behind it as well. So they really are a great team, and I'm always in awe of what they do. I mean, it's just, you watch a guy get on a motorcycle and jump off a ramp and do 3 flips, and I'm thinking, I can't do that, but it's really cool to see. So
Yeah, no, absolutely.
yeah. Pramod, I can't thank you enough for coming in and doing this. Is there anything else you want to add or throw out there for everybody?
No, I appreciate the time, Matt. I just hope everybody is, stays safe. It does seem like, I mean, there are ups and downs, even with this pandemic, right? Last week, I thought that, wow, it looks like, we are finally turning a corner. And then a few days later, it seems like, oops, I don't know. It seems like there's spike happening. But I think the general trend is positive. I really hope everyone stays safe and, we can work through this and get back into work and in some shape soon start seeing each other, especially for those, inside Ruckus Comscope that we start, seeing each other face to face eventually. But I appreciate all the hard work that the team has put together. I wish everyone well.
Yep. Thank you. We appreciate you too. And like you said, I hope you, your family's safe, everybody's safe, and hopefully we'll be in the room again together soon.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks, Matt.
All right. Thank you. Thanks. See everybody.
Thank you for listening to Ruckcast. If you just found us for the first time, be sure to follow or subscribe on your platform of choice so you can be notified of future episodes. If you have ideas for future episodes or can't find Ruckcast on your favorite platform, contact us at ruckcast@comscope.com. And as always, thanks for listening.